She's a scrap of humanity, but to the doctors here she symbolises Syria's plight, clinging to life and crying out for help in a voice that's pathetically weak. She was born to a mother on the run who's fled her home 10 times already. At just 20 days old, Teslim's already endured unbearable hardship. She's desperately hungry. But her tiny stomach's so small she can barely ingest anything. She spent all her life until now living in a tent. It was so bitterly cold, her heart had all but stopped when she was brought in. And there are so many more suffering. The doctors say about half a dozen babies come in every day, desperately undernourished or born prematurely to traumatise mothers. And Teslim's mother still has to feed her 9 other siblings.
يعني قلق نفسي على طول الأيام وخايفين نخاف على أولادنا نخاف يعني نزوح أكثر من هيك أو محاصرة أو شيء يعني نضل خايفين.
The medics and the hospital itself is under constant threat from airstrikes. An alarm goes off whilst we're there. Yellow means there's a jet overhead, red that an attack is imminent. More than 70 hospitals have already been put out of action. This is one of the few left operating inside Idlib. Dr. Ikram is overwhelmed with young patients, many of them critical.
The situation is very bad. Bad to a very large extent. I don't say nothing's describe this situation.
She's a mother of 2 and pregnant again. And taking us around the hospital, it's clear she's exhausted. In her office, she breaks down from sheer frustration.
بالطيران عم نموت بالقصف عم نموت بالبرد عم يموتوا بالجوع لك طب خلص يا اخي ايش بدكم يعني خلص ايش فينا يعني ايش في اكثر شيء ايش في شيء يا اخي خلص موتوا هالعالم زبطوا عليهم قبلي وموتوهم خلصوهم موتونا كلنا دفعه وحده يعني احنا ما معقول نضل عمرنا كله عم نشوف الموت يوم ورا يوم ورا يوم ما احسن موتونا مره وحده خلص بدكم تموتوا هالعالم ما بدكم اياهم زبطوا عليهم قبلي موتوهم كلهم دفعه وحده وخلصونا يعني صارت العالم تفرح لما انا والله اولادي ماتوا خلص من همهم من وين بدي اقويهم.
The medics all talk of fear of bombs, but also their duty.
ما في حدا ما بيخاف ما في حدا ما بيخاف يعني وقت بتطلع الطياره بيقولوا ضربتهم بنخاف طبعا على طول الاصوات بالليل بالنهار بس يعني بدنا نقدم مهمتنا يعني عايشين نحن تحت الخوف اذا انا الطبيب تركت هذا الطفل مين بيهتم فيه اذا الممرضه تركت مين بده يهتم بهالطفل بدهم يموتوا.
If Teslim survives, her mother Warda will bring her back to a tent on these railway sleepers. And she'll fight to stay alive again, every day. The cot where Teslim nearly froze to death lies empty. Her 9 other siblings are bedraggled and dirty. Many have no shoes, several have bad coughs, and all seem subdued. Their mother points out that 6 of her children have been born during the war. They know no other life but bombings, killings and terror. And that never stops. This is an airstrike on a house belonging to a pensioner. Listen to that breathing. There's real terror from first responders about a follow-up attack. It's a common tactic. This is rural Dartazar. There's nothing else around here. And Russia insists its airstrikes are only backing Syria's legitimate government. Somehow the elderly owner walks out alive. It's Syria's most vulnerable who are most affected.
They go the drone before the bombing.
Yes. The Russians and Syrian regime argue their troops are only targeting terrorists and rebel jihadists. Strikes like this one, they say, are collateral damage.
Still got all their eating, food ready, flour out ready, their last night's plates from last night's dinner.
And those first on the scene worry every time about seeing the dead and injured.
I was so afraid that I will see kids, the little girls, the boys, you know, the whole situation. I thank God many times that they decide, well, there's just one old woman.
Are they saying something about the drone? Because it sounds like it's getting closer.
It's regular. It's happening every 5 minutes. Just be quiet. Just hold on.
That's more than a drone now. That's now aircraft.
Yeah. Aircraft, yes.
The aircraft is gone now. You can see the sense of trepidation whenever a drone comes up, then an aircraft comes, a jet comes, and they think, right, we're going to be next. It's terrorising.
Up the hill, a heavily fortified hospital is also hit a short time later. The Russian backing is what's giving Syria's Bashar al-Assad the air superiority he so needs to consolidate his control here. That's audio we've tracked down from the cockpit of a Russian jet. The time of those recordings, talking about air manoeuvres, tie in with the departure of Russian jets from their base in Latakia and also match the time of the airstrikes we witnessed on this hospital. It's only the warning from this rebel monitoring system that's saving any of these people, nothing else.
This was a functioning hospital, and not so long ago, maybe an hour or so ago, before the airstrikes started happening, everything is fresh. The water's still running, the fans are still on. There were patients here. The registry shows that there were a number of patients here, children amongst them. And look what's happened. We think multiple strikes all in one go, maybe 3-4 strikes were seen hitting this hospital, which was the main hospital serving tens of thousands of people in this area.
And all the parties involved in this conflict are given specific GPS locations for all the medical facilities here. Attacking hospitals is an international war crime.
No one believing us. That if they believe us, they need to act. You need to do something to stop, at least to protect the hospitals, to protect medical points, to protect vital centers. They're just doing their duty in saving lives. They're just doing their duty in helping people.
Why do you think the world isn't listening? Why aren't they doing something?
Because they want us to be killed. They don't want to hear us. They want us to be killed in silence.
From the hillside next to the hospital, we saw jets peppering the areas around us with airstrikes. There was return fire from amongst houses. There are war crimes on both sides of this bloody tussle for territory. The fighting is prompting a mass exodus of those caught in this ever-shifting battlefield. Nearly 1 million people have taken to the roads with all they own in less than 3 months. And they're still fleeing, the bulk of them women and children. About 500,000 are children. An entire city of youngsters, homeless and on the move. That's the same size as the population of Manchester. Many families don't really have any clear idea where they're going to. They've moved multiple times to get away from the fighting. They're running out of places to run to.
قصف همجي ممكن يعني ما بنقدر نضل يعني مدنية عسكرية ما عم يفرق وعندنا أطفال صغار ونسوان يعني إجباري بدنا نطلع ما بنقدر نتحمل بيوتنا كلها نهدد.
It's been a crushing military campaign by the regime, attacking on multiple fronts, advancing at lightning speed, with Russia and Turkey backing opposing sides, making a mockery of any truce agreed, and causing an humanitarian crisis on a huge scale. And with Turkey threatening tough military intervention if the regime forces don't retreat, they don't know what they're heading into. In the centre of Idlib city, the desperate are hiding out in what was once the football stadium. Underneath the arena seating, there are now hordes of tents, crowded with families. And in one of the basement areas, more than 400 women and children are crammed together. They call it the widow's bedroom. Women bereaved by the war, now coping with babies who are fatherless. Education in Idlib now means learning how to avoid being blown up by a cluster bomb. A white helmets team treats minor ailments. But there's no consoling little boys who are now orphans and left all alone to face this war.
نفسيا يحجي بتعب عليهم هيك بشوفهم كلهم هيك اطفال هيك شعر الطفل شعر الاطفال ما في مدارس عم بيترجم لك الاخ الاطفال حرام بدون مدارس.
Convoys of Turkish armoured vehicles are now crisscrossing through Idlib. The Turks are flexing their military muscles whilst politicians scramble to try to stop all-out war. For the civilians trapped in the middle, war's already here. And from the very young to the very old, here at least, they're afraid of Bashar al-Assad.
يا اخي احنا شوالين قلنا مجرم ولا شوالين.
لا ما بقول لك احكي غصب عنك بس يعني انتم خايفين السنه.
انت ما تعرف انه مجرم وطفشك وهدم بيوتك
ايه غصبا عنا ايش بدينا؟ هدمنا طردنا اريد العزيزه اريد بس برود القاع.
Little Abdullah may be just 3 years old, but he speaks like a war veteran.
طفشنا على الجري ونغمى بالضرب ناخذ ويانا الجري نيدي نقوش وبر بالتشريع ونيدي شفتين ونعمر فيش فوق باب ناخذ ويانا وبوف ناخذها ويانا.
Children far too knowledgeable about war whilst Idlib burns, and there's no end to this suffering yet in sight.